Are you able to see my screen? Hello? Are you able to see my screen? Okay. So anyway, it's our first session. I don't think we can really catch up with our impressions the moment I start speaking with you. But one thing I can always say is, if you are a first time visitor into the IT sector, means majority of the times I have students who say like, sir, I'm from the non-IT background. Maybe you're from the engineering background or non-engineering background, that doesn't matters. But majority of the times I have students asking me one fair question like, sir, I'm from a non-IT background. Technically, I want to switch my career into the IT side. From where I should begin with? I don't have any programming knowledge previously, or maybe in my first year of engineering, some amount of syllabus oriented C language I have done, but I'm not so confident about my programming skills. These are all very regular questions I'll be having from students. Now, if you are anybody sitting in that particular way, I can only say one thing. Starting with the databases, definitely you have not done any kind of mistake. You started very properly, but the only thing I can say is how best you can start making a journey successful. It only depends upon the day by day as we are interacting with one another. Every day we have an excitement of passion, what we will going to generate, what we will be generating, or what we are going to develop every day. The only thing is how many times you are absolutely in sync with my discussions and the debates what I'm going to have as I take you throughout the course. If you're a non-IT student, initially it may look like databases are something very difficult and complicated. You just leave all those things onto my shoulders, okay? Because you just gave me the responsibility of handling your requirement that you want to come into the IT sector, and technically you just want to make up yourself to work with a technology that is driven by database management systems as a principle. Now, keeping you very comfortable and making you operate with databases is my job. Okay, that really is something that you'll see as the days are going on. So initially, you may have here and there confusions if you are a non-IT student, but just don't worry, man. No technology can be understood on the first day itself, but we can at least start properly and we can just take a leap towards the process day by day. So let us see what are the first steps that we are trying to adapt to understand databases. Now, before we start understanding the databases, there are certain things what we need to really look into. See, finally, at the end of the day, the question is why I need a database. Now, what you will do with your database is your experience. Don't worry about that. But at least we should have a very fair amount of an answer like what I will do with my database. If that question is not answered, there's no meaning in learning all the commands I teach you, executing all the examples I'll give you, and I get the same result and you get the same result. And finally, you say that I learned a database, and your industry gives you one problem and you're unable to fit yourself into that particular problem, find an approach and go towards a solution. The day when you're unable to give a solution to the problem that is kept in front of you, I think your whole time and money is wasted. So from the beginning of the course till the end of the course, we'll keep only one agenda. The agenda is nothing but making ourselves comfortable to understand the problems in real time, putting them into a rule of analysis, identifying an approach, and designing a solution. Am I clear with you? So we will be going only in that particular piece of the approach continuously. So try to look into that particular factor very clearly. Therefore, no doubt we are sitting in these particular sessions fundamentally trying to learn a technology that is driven by one company by name Oracle. Okay. Now that's, I think you came into this session. So many number of students, they just came into the session with one single point of agenda. I want to learn Oracle. Okay. Definitely these sessions will make you learn Oracle. Don't worry about it. But what I should learn in Oracle? The first thing what we should understand in the first session itself is Oracle itself is not any software. Okay, people may use the word called as Oracle, but Oracle is not any kind of software. It is the name of one organization or an enterprise which actually deals with multiple different number of software tools and packages and utilities. It is the only corporation in the world that got its recognition by the name of its organization as a software. So generally when somebody is asking you, definitely you will say like, I'm learning Oracle database. Generally this is a kind of term what people will use. I'm learning Oracle database. But actually, to be frank enough, database is something different and Oracle is something. Oracle is a company and database is a principle what you have to understand and learn to organize and arrange your data, that is basically in reference to your business. So there are more than thousands of utilities and tools that are provided by Oracle Corporation to deal with the data in industrial standards. Okay, as per the industrial standards, there are multiple different number of tools and utilities what Oracle Corporation really deals with. Out of thousands of utilities and tools and packages what Oracle Corporation really markets, what you have to learn now. So technically, when somebody says I'm learning Oracle, the first thing is technically trying to learn is a specific kind of language which is basically provided from Oracle Corporation, that is called as SQL Star Plus. So technically, whenever you are trying to work with the process, people who are trying to say that they are learning Oracle, they are definitely trying to learn one of the language that is provided by Oracle Corporation. That is nothing but SQL Star Plus. Now, what exactly SQL Star Plus will do and why we need it, this is where I think we are sitting in these sessions now. Okay, from today, our responsibility is beginning to understand that SQL Star Plus as one of the tool or language that is provided by Oracle very effectively, such that we can understand a problem and design a solution. That's the first thing. The second thing, with SQL Star Plus, we cannot really provide a solution through its final implementation. We can get through the solution, but to the final implementation and the dynamics and the intelligence that is expected by the business environments, we cannot really adapt and we cannot really apply that. So where SQL Star Plus actually looks limited by itself or limitational by itself in providing the final solution to the business process, there we will extend ourselves, there we will start extending ourselves, and then we start adding up a new language that is once again provided by Oracle Corporation, that is nothing but called as PLSQL. So our entire agenda for this entire course, starting from today till the end, is learning SQL Star Plus in a very effective way to the demand of the industrial implementations, adding up dynamism into it such that we can give intelligent solutions on the process of the business as demanded by the business end user by applying something called as a PLSQL. So here one question comes from students like, sir, can I learn SQL and PLS skill together parallelly? Now on the commercial side of the markets, if you ask me, I'll say yes. But fairly worrying about your career and looking into a very proper stay in the industry, then I say it's not good. Okay, SQL and PLS skill parallelly learning is not good. Why? Because the more stronger you can understand your SQL, the more better you can apply with PLS skill. PLS skill is a small extension to the limitations of your SQL. Therefore, until you do not understand and grasp the construct and content of the way SQL represents itself and the way SQL applies itself in your rule of the business problem, now you can't really think of extending yourself with PLS skill till then. So that's a very simple kind of idea why we are into these sessions from today onwards. So the day I say your PLS skill is completed, I can definitely say your sessions are done and you will get ready to make yourself and mark yourself to get into the industries by preparing your corresponding resume by the concept and criteria of the confidence what you're going to develop. That's okay. Now we will be learning SQL, star plus and PLS skill. Now I will give you one command. I will tell you the syntax. I will write the code and then I'll execute it. You'll get some result. And once again, you'll do the same thing what I did. In your machine also, the same kind of output will come. But finally, the question is, why we are doing all this? Okay, finally, the question is why we are doing all this. There should be some reason. So learning a database management system software or any programming language in your colleges or your academics, to learning your databases or any kind of softwares or programming languages from these kind of institutional training has a big lot of difference. When you are actually learning your programming languages or databases or any packages or software in your colleges, your main target will be concentrating on your end semester examination, attempting those few questions that you may get in your exam and finalize yourself that you are passed out of that semester from this particular subject that has been given to you. Therefore, you can learn directly the concept as simple question and an answer methodology. But when you come to institutional training like this, you cannot keep that kind of mindset. If I'm not wrong, I think everybody sitting on the other side, you're seriously looking into a break in your career, trying to crack yourself into the IT industry and get yourself thorough with the criteria and composition of getting applied into your jobs. So once you make yourself enter into the jobs, I think you're always surrounded with the problems what the industry will give you. And you need to design solutions and then you have to provide the industry purely an approach that can make the businessman to come out of that particular problem. So if we are learning SQL, star plus and PLS skill, the main agenda of learning this SQL, star plus and PLS skill is to understand a component in real time that is fundamentally considered as a system. Okay. So you need to just understand one thing. If you say that you're technically trying to come with the process of learning your technologies, not only SQL, star plus and PLS skill, any technologies, if you are trying to learn, you should always remember that you're learning these technologies only with respect to the criteria and composition of building a system. Be very, very clear about that. Okay. So what is exactly a system? System is any kind of environment where you are conducting or where you're executing a set of business operations that fundamentally have a goal to that particular businessman's environment. Okay. So system is any kind of environment where you're trying to execute certain kinds of operations or processes that are absolutely targeted to the end user, that is nothing but the businessman's goal. So if you say that you have learned your SQL, star plus in PL SQL, at the end of the course, when your industry is asking you, why did you learn your SQL and PL SQL from Oracle Corporation? Now you cannot just say like, I want to learn a database I learned. That's okay. But the fair answer is, so learning my SQL and PL SQL, I'm now ready to provide any solutions to the real-time business systems that are existing in the world or the markets. Now, system is not a very simple thing to get defined, but exactly what a system contains. The question that arises is, in practicality, what exactly a system really contains. Now, a system is technically a collection of multiple different number of components, no doubt about it. But before we go and try to understand, the system is a collection of what kind of components and exactly what system really contains and how it exactly looks like. We need to understand a great lot of research has been done decades together to understand the systems that are existing in real time. Researchers have been doing much of great effort for this. Why? Because these systems that are fundamentally developed, they should give very effective solutions to the end users. So any software you are fundamentally learning, that software should have the ability to provide an effective solution to the system that the businessman is operating with. Now, everybody can write their logical state of the program in their own way. But imagine 1 million software programmers, they are writing their programs with respect to the requirement of the end user, that is nothing but the businessman. No doubt everybody wants to give a solution. But if you don't provide an approach to the solution in a way that looks universally similar, I don't say same, the way universally it looks similar, if you don't provide such kind of platform, then technically at the later stages, managing these particular softwares and solutions can become a big nightmare. So after doing a great lot of research, the people who deal with the data, formally they came up with certain kinds of principles. And they said like, these principles we have to definitely apply, and guiding to these particular principles only, we have to develop any particular software that can provide a solution for managing the data in the business. Out of multiple different number of principles that have been fundamentally researched, the first principle that came into the world was database management systems. In short, in your academics, you could have been learning this as DBMS. Now, what is exactly this database management system? It is a formal research that fundamentally gives guidelines and rules how we should analyze a problem in the real time, recognize the criteria of the structure and the criteria of the application that has to be developed, the way we should organize the entire data, and the way we have to organize the objects that are existing within the data. So there are certain formal methodologies and principles that are defined by DBMS. Following to those formal principles of DBMS only, any database management system software in the world will be developed. So Oracle Corporation, when it is saying that it's providing you SQL Star Plus and PLS skill as two different kinds of tools or utilities, your Oracle Corporation is definitely promising that these two tools are absolutely designed keeping in mind the solutions what you can give to the systems by following the principles of DBMS. Means when I say that I'm an SQL developer or a PLS skill developer, I'm promising the industry that I'm just not a person who will just execute the commands or statements, but I'm a person who execute these commands or statements upon a system following and understanding the principles of database management systems. So what are these particular principles? Now, speaking in one particular session is okay, but just we started. Now, technically what I say is catching up these particular principles as a set of some definitions and then speaking is not a correct way. We will technically try to understand and associate these principles practically. Because when I'm working with you on SQL Star Plus and PLS skill, every level wherever I'm discussing with you with respect to certain feature that is provided in the language of your SQL Star Plus, I will technically try to tell you this feature in SQL Star Plus is working under which principle of DBMS. That's how we'll be learning both by integrated framework of thinking. We are not separating DBMS as one kind of concept as an individual discussion and SQL separated as one individual technology. We integrate both. Why? Because these two should come together. These two should come together definitely to provide a final solution for the systems. Now here we need to understand certain things. When we develop any applications with a principle of DBMS, following the language of SQL Star Plus or any other kind of language that is there in the world, finally we give this product to the end user. When we give the product that we have developed to the end user starts utilizing that particular piece of the product, and the end user will cross check because of the software product how much of his business process has become much easy, how much of his business process has become much faster, how much of his business process has become much secure, how much of his business process has become more consistent. These kind of things he will check. And overall, he will try to see this product as a database management system product is giving me how much consistency and accuracy of my business. And at the same time, increasing my easiness in conducting my business. These are the main things what a client will check. Now, after these database management system products were developed and they were handed over to the end users, when they are utilizing this particular product, they have identified that there are certain kinds of limitations within these particular products which are exactly not giving the solution to the demand of his requirement and easiness. Means flexibility, I can say. Maybe certain times flexibility, certain times in technicality. Now, definitely a client will raise a query to the company that designs these particular products. When these kind of queries are raised, the researchers have identified that what client is expecting is very genuine, but the expectations of the client, the way he is expecting them to be applied into the business to the software what we are given, if it is integrated, the core principles of DBMS will be disturbed. Means if I make any changes in my software according to the expectation of my client, the researched principles of DBMS will be getting damaged. Now here it's a very critical bottleneck now. What client is demanding, I have to provide him, that service I have to give him. But if I take that service as a main priority, then definitely I have to make a shattered disturbance to the principles of DBMS that have been researched. Now, that's the area where the research institutions in the world have identified that giving the expected features to the end user is a must, but we should not make any damage to the principles of DBMS. That's how this database management system principles have been extended to the next level by providing certain features which are fundamentally called as relational database management systems. So they are basically called as RDBMS. Now you should always understand one thing. When you say that you're learning any particular technology that is RDBMS oriented, you should not forget that RDBMS principles are fundamental extensions to the core limitations of your database management system principles. Therefore, RDBMS is not totally different. You need to always understand this. So, all the clients whose business requirements are falling under DBMS, we develop them in the construct of the DBMS principles only. Those extensions, what few of the clients' business is demanding, without damaging the core of the database management system principles, we add up with relational database management systems, and then we'll extend to the system. We'll extend the system. That's how the products were once again released to the end user. Now, end user is always a practical guy. Now, after these RDBMS products have been released and they have been fundamentally applied for their usage, the clients have identified that the limitations of the DBMS have been addressed without damaging the core principles of DBMS. But there are some limitations in RDBMS also with respect to their expectations in conducting the business. Means RDBMS was also not providing all those fundamental solutions that are expected the way it is in demand to the practicality. Then definitely I can say the client raises a query to the software companies or the research institutions saying that this is what is missing, what I need in my business. The researchers will once again try to cross verify, and definitely they are not interested to disturb and damage the relational principles. Means relational database management system principles, they should not be disturbed. At the same time, we should be in a position to provide services and solutions that can technically make the end user make his business reshape according to his easiness and flexibility. That's how the next level of the researches have been made, and they extended the principles to the concept of object-oriented database management systems. So nothing has happened in one single day. Every time it is a research and extension, a research and extension. This is how the things have been happening. The research institutions have identified that only with the principles of DBMS, we cannot manage effective state of the data. So what they said is, let us manage the databases by putting object orientation as one of the core principle, which can increase high level consistency and the privacy of the data. And it can look more flexible in managing the data as to the business by the scalability what the end user is expecting in the business. And you know very well that any business environment is very dynamic by its nature in existence. Now, to sustain to that dynamism of that particular business environment, you cannot redesign your software again and again, which can be a costly factor and economically not suitable to the client. So the researchers, what they have identified is, in order to see that we are not keeping the scalability as one of the issue that can look very difficult, in applying into the business environment whenever the business goes for a change. So they thought like, rather than working with pure relational database management system principles, let us put the database management system principles into object orientation. But what researchers after some amount of time they've identified is, with object oriented database management systems, we can technically achieve the requirements of the client either functionally or technically much easily, but implementing needs a great deal of skilled software resources. Means we need very highly skilled resources to apply, identify and execute it. And all projects in real time really cannot go with pure object oriented thinking. Then within a short span of time, the researchers, they understood that we need to once again redefine and redesign our system and our principles, and that's how your object relational database management systems came into the world. So it's a integration of, or you can say it's a hybrid mechanism of keeping the objects and relations together to get the solutions thoroughly for any kind of business system that is existing in practicality. Second thing is, we started making the professionals from core object oriented thinking and relational thinking to integrate, come together and build solutions. Major part of the database management system softwares in the world, they definitely follow the database management system principles and relational database management system principles. Means you can consider all the databases in the world that are existing currently, they are definitely RDBMS oriented. When you say it's an RDBMS oriented database, it is definitely following internally the database management system principles. We cannot negotiate on it, or we cannot just ignore it. But all the database management system softwares are not object oriented and object relational by nature. Be very, very clear about it. So Oracle is promising that if you are using your Oracle as a product with SQL Star Plus and PLSQL, it can always provide you solutions to your system that is existing in the world of business with all these four principles. Definitely means when you say that you are a database management system specialist or a professional, you're promising the industry, when you keep in your resume that you're from Oracle product, you're very clearly saying that if you can keep me into any project that is existing in real time, I can give you services from the core database management system principles to anything that comes and falls under object relational database management systems. Definitely. But the world cannot stop here. See, technology is something that is always in demand of change. Why? Because applicationally, the businessman is so dynamic in conducting his business. He has always some new idea and thought that makes him get his business into a more dynamic and easiest way in functionality. That's why the world started moving more seriously to the next level of research. In this next level of the research that has been in the markets, where high-level internet working and web-oriented architecture started generating, the database management system principles have to integrate itself to web-oriented database management systems. But I can tell you one thing, this web-oriented database management systems or anything in the next level of the extension you can find in the world, They're all like subsets of the previous four. So web-oriented database management systems, they keep a major focus of arranging the data, organizing the data that can be more easily accessible, operatable with internet-oriented integrated architectures. The main focus is to see that upon the internet oriented applications or internet oriented environments, your data presentation and your data operations can be done more easily and more effectively with highest security, because your data is now moving into a public network. When your data is moving into a public network, the main concern that comes is the consistency and the security of the data. So web-oriented databases, they not only take the responsibility of organizing and arranging the data as per the business environment, but they also take the responsibility additionally to give all such kind of features that are demanded by the internet-oriented architectures in managing the data for WWW, means worldwide web implementations. But here also, once the internet came into the world, the span and expansion of the data and its usage and applicability started changing very drastically. Great lot of researches have taken place starting from 1995 till today in the internet oriented technologies and internet oriented implementations. From the day when we used to sit on a private desktop connected to a private network to today, you access your data by a simple tap of your mobile phone. I think it's a very revolutionary change that has happened in the world. Therefore, the process of research of database management systems has never stopped. It started once again extending itself. And then they identified that to handle very huge amount of data and to see that the data can be easily accessible, organized and arranged by the layout of the end user requirement in the web applications with the highest speed and consistency. Today we use one principle in your databases which is called as column oriented database management systems. All the previous database management systems are considered as row oriented. You'll understand these differences when you get into your practicality. But suddenly the world started looking into a kind of database management systems that are purely column oriented by nature. These column oriented database management systems in the markets today, they serve your big data like industries, your data science and high level machine learning architectural industries, which in practicality are called as NoSQL databases. When you say NoSQL database, technically you should understand that it is not exactly called as there is no SQL. Means people misunderstand NoSQL as we don't have any SQL. Here NO represents not only SQL. For a span of 40 years, the industry believed that to access the data from any business environment, the only way we can do that is absolutely going with the construct and composition of using one language called as SQL. That's what the world has actually believed all these years. Now, SQL can do real wonders, no doubt about it. And even today, SQL has its own demand. There are many number of people who misunderstand, thinking that we do not have any kind of databases in near future with SQL as a standard. SQL can never be eliminated at any point of time on the construct of your data management principles for even next 100 years, man. Without using relational database management system principles and object oriented principles, you can't develop any technology in the world. Any other technology you develop, any other principle, will be a layer that operates on these two. So when people say NoSQL is a criteria of databases where we don't use any SQL, that is ignorance. Here, the concept of NoSQL says that to access the data in certain kinds of environments where you are managing your data outside the DBMS principles, long back what we used to do is the data that is in non-DBMS principles, we used to convert the data into a database management system principle architecture and then apply SQL and used to work with it. That used to be a very high level time consuming activity and very costly factor also. Now the world does not have that much of time in certain cases in real time when the data is getting captured. Today my data is so dynamic. By the tap of your screen on your mouse, I have to operate. Screen of your mobile phone, I have to operate my data. When your data is so fast for its state of analysis, I cannot tell the people, collect the data, organize the data, arrange the data, sort the data, then you try to take the data. Now it can take some 3-4 days of time. But the world is today working with such a kind of speed. The moment you slip on your mobile phone, we are expecting the solution of your business to come out. In these kind of environments, we have these not only SQL databases that are developed, which are called as column-oriented databases. So what exactly are column-oriented databases? See, this is a journeyman. This is a fundamental journey that we are going to do throughout this particular course. Now, you just expect me to give a snip of a answer or solution. I don't think it's just going to really be wonderful. We need to experience it. We'll go through the process. These NoSQL databases, they may have their own brands once again in the market. Okay, you have a brand called as MongoDB, and you have something called as Cassandra. You have something called as HBase. Oracle itself has in its products a provision for NoSQL database nowadays. So NoSQL is one kind of philosophy once again. Be very clear. Don't misunderstand that NoSQL as there is absence of SQL there. The criteria is, or in near future SQL will not be there. Don't get into such kind of things. SQL will sustain and it will be there. The more, trust me, the more you understand your principles of SQL along with PLSQL, your journey for next 20 to 25 years in your industry will be a very, very smooth sailing. It's very difficult to believe me in my first class, but trust me, you will start experiencing this at later stages. So your negligence is your problem in learning this course. But every point I say, you have to catch up very seriously, look into it very effectively, and start getting through your thought of the solutions. Now, the world did not really stop with this column-oriented database management systems alone, because technology never stops for somebody's requirement or reasons. That's how the research continues even today. Be very, very clear about that. And in that state of the research that's fundamentally continuing, we have the criteria and composition of the process that are absolutely this column-oriented database management systems getting ready for big data like implementations. Data analytics like implementations. Means storage is one side, processing is on the other side. So if I'm repeating that column-oriented database management system twice, what I just mean to say is there's a great lot of research that is happening on this column-oriented database management systems, looking into them on one side with storage side requirement and the other side with processing side requirements. Means in both the cases, they should give effective solutions. That's what the world is expecting. From there, we started moving down through the process to the next level of the researchers. And we are into cloud computing database management system architectures today. To be frank enough, properly, if we are speaking, starting from here to here, in general, the world calls it as the world of cloud computing. In general, we use a term called as cloud computing. But finally, you learn your database management systems in whichever way, that doesn't matters. But the final point is how many number of times you're promising that with the technology, what you have learned, you can build a system with solution. Are you seriously answering with your softwares, whatever you learn, whatever you have learned, and which principle you apply and you associate, that doesn't matters. But finally, if you don't give solutions to the system, your time and your money are totally wasted. Be very clear about that. So no industry will care you if you say that I know a database. Industry says you know database or not, that's a secondary issue for me. I have a problem. Can you provide a solution using your database? So at the end of the course, the only thing you should get through your confidence is I can give solutions by using this technology in the industrial implementations. That confidence, if you're not deriving, then I think you're as same as 1,000 people in the markets who say that we know databases. You're as same as a student who is coming from his academics and is just saying that I know the subject of SQL and I know the subject of PLSQL. We technically do not need any of your subject. We only need your effort to be applied in understanding the problem, analyzing the approach to the solution, what you should achieve for that particular problem by using your technology like your SQL, Star Plus, and PLSQL, by following any one of these fundamental principles in database or an integration of one or two principles together. But finally, how best you can give the solution is what industry looks into. I think I'm very fairly clear with what is your agenda for this entire course. And all this has never happened in one single day. Be sure about it, okay? All this has never happened in one single day. Somewhere around 1960s, the first time research has started. From there, a continuous effort of research till what you are fundamentally saying that is 2020. But I can definitely say that this research cycle continues, okay? That is a total overall research up to 2010. And in this last 10 years, a great lot of researches have once again taken place. But we mark the rule of the database management systems by their effective research of change up to 2010. Now, starting from 1960 to 2010, the overall time period, if you can take, is absolutely 50 years, man. So don't forget, you're learning one technology with the principles that have been researched for almost all 50 years, half a century of research. You cannot underestimate the expectations of your industry behind this. And trust me, you cannot expect any business application in the world by 98% to be developed without a database. Today, you take any application, database is the first level platform from where actually your state of data management and data operations will begin. So, the more you keep your effort into understanding your databases, applied with the principles that are there in the markets and the technologies that are serving these principles makes a big difference. And no doubt you're learning Oracle, which is one of the most highly demanding database management system softwares in the markets. Anyhow, time fundamentally tells us what best we can do and what wonders we can do behind this. So understanding the timeline of the research and development, if you're learning this course, I'll be very happy, man. Rather than that, you just sit in your sessions thinking that this person will give me some examples and I will use these examples and I'll try to get the job. With examples, you can get your job, but with examples, you cannot keep your job, because you can only keep your job when you can provide solutions. So how many times you're taking my examples by the rule of analysis, what I tell you, and you can put them into solutions and confidently tell the industry, I am a person who can provide you solutions definitely by using my technology of SQL star plus and PLS skill. So our contract seriously begins to understand a system along with the software. Now, one simple thing we need to really understand is the system and the data flow in real-time business, how it's basically applied. And finally, why I should really understand a system first of all. Okay, what software will do, let us not worry. What great I can do with my software if I cannot really understand a system or a business. So my next few minutes, I think, is very seriously a concentratable component for us now. So as I already said, we are definitely designing the criteria and composition of developing the systems that fundamentally make a fair amount of solution oriented approaches. Okay, so we need to definitely get into the rule of the application to understand the construct and composition of the process. Therefore, before we just go and start applying the criteria and composition of the construct and catch up the basic definitions, let us just check what is exactly happening in the flow. You have a system, let us say, what is exactly that represents your system now? You should always remember a system is absolutely a collection of objects and events. In very simplest state, if you are talking about a system, if you are speaking about a system is nothing but a collection of objects and events, nothing more than that. Therefore, on one side of your system, you definitely have something called as objects, and on the other side of the system, you have something that is basically called as events. Now, what are these objects and what are these events? Anything that is fundamentally dictating the existence of your business and the operational state of your business is nothing but an object. Now, here, when we say business, it doesn't mean it is always a commercial activity. Okay. See, financial systems are one kind of systems. In general, everything is called as a business. So these business systems, they are just a collection of objects and events. Like today we are in the session of one particular business oriented system in which I am delivering the lecture in relevance to your databases from this side as a faculty, as an object. And you are sitting on the other side specifically with respect to your criterial ability to receive what I am speaking, understand, and then recollecting and remembering with a targeted goal to get your jobs as a student. So on one side I am an object called as a faculty, on the other side you are a object called as a student. We both together are executing one business process called as lecture. That is nothing but one small system. So a system can have one or more number of objects. How many number of objects your system is having, that doesn't matter, but definitely these objects in the system along with the event. So what do you mean by event? Me executing the lecture is an event. You listening to the lecture is another event. Okay. So from my side, I am delivering. From your side, you're receiving. So event is nothing but any kind of activity that is conducted within your business system to make some process of your business to get implemented. That is nothing but called as event. So any business system in the world can have a huge amount of criteria of objects and events together. No doubt. So these objects and events, they cannot exist just like that independently. Every object and event in the business environment will be existing in an independent state, but they will be operating with an interactive state. So these objects and events, they should be interacting with one another. So I am able to interact with you with an event called as lecture via a medium called as internet. So your internet is also one kind of object that is technically supporting our process of the business. So there's no great confusion in understanding these objects and events. Okay. Anything that fundamentally supports your operational state of your business and its existence is an object. So these objects and events are in continuous interaction to see that the system is always in its own life of existence. Now, this is the area where the next level of the questions will come in. Now, a question that comes from a very basic beginner is, why these objects and events are interacting within the system? As I already said, these objects and events are interacting within the system for executing the business operations. See, yesterday you were existing as an object in this world. Even I am also existing in this world as an object on the other side. But watch very carefully, we never tried to interact with one another yesterday at 7 o'clock in the evening. But today we started because we both have signed one agreement that we will be in the participative state of the business operation today from 7 to 8:30. Until that business operation is not identified, no two objects and events in the system will start interacting. So our interaction is only because we have identified a state of the business operation that should be executed within the business environment. Okay, your system is a collection of objects and events, and these objects and events are interacting with one another for executing the business operations. Everything is looking good. Great. But here, one of the basic questions that we need to always ask as a technologist: what happens when the business operations are conducted? Means these objects, when they're interacting with other objects through events and business operations are getting executed, what is happening when these business operations are conducted? So whenever these business operations are conducted, technologically, your system is going to the next level of its implementation, because anytime, anywhere in the world, an object in the business with the associated event, if it is interacting for the purpose of executing any business operation, you like or you do not like, it starts generating some data. It will definitely starts generating some data. So objects and events in the business, they are interacting with one another to produce some data. So what do you mean by this? Let us say one small thing, man. Okay, you are an object of a customer with an event called as visiting. You went into one retail store. Your retail store is another object on the other side. After visiting, you executed one particular business operation called as purchase. You have executed an event called as purchase, taking some items that are existing in the retail outlet store, where items are the objects once again. Now you went to the billing station, and at the billing station you generated your bill for that particular purchase. The moment the bill for that purchase has been generated, you gave the money as per that particular bill. Now immediately what happened? From your balance sheet, some amount of money has reduced, and in the balance sheet of the retail outlet store, some amount of money has increased. From the inventory, automatically some amount of stock of items has reduced, and from your inventory some amount of stock of items have increased. This is all nothing but data that is getting generated, that is telling you how this particular transaction of the business has been executed. Therefore, whenever a business operation is executed with the interaction of objects and events, you like or you do not like, data gets generated. You can't stop it. Now the question that arises is, what we have to do with this data? Means this data that is getting generated in the business, what I have to do with it? A very good businessman, once this data is getting generated, he will always see that he is trying to store and stock this particular piece of the data. He'll try to store and secure that particular piece of the data that is getting generated. This is happening. This is what is happening in every individual business operation. Be very, very clear about that. Whether it is small or it is big, that doesn't matter. Definitely, you say there is some business implementation that is happening in the world. Technically, these fundamental steps will be there. Now, depending upon the size of the business and the seriousness with which the business is conducted, now the question arises how I should store this data and how I should secure this particular piece of the data. This is the area where the world of database management system environment starts. This is an area where a computerized architecture is planned. A software integrated data storage and data operational mechanism will be adapted. So, as a database management system developer, whatever I'm keeping on the right side of the database management system environment, if you cannot understand, what is the use you learn any of your commands or your statements I give you as examples? So throughout my course, be very clear. You should keep one thing in your mind. We are absolutely trying to learn anything in SQL or PLSQL to finally provide a solution by understanding the system and organizing the data with respect to the way the business can be executed in the best way. Now the question that starts is, once I keep this data stored permanently in these database management systems, what I have to do with it? Okay, what I have to actually do with that particular stored data? Because a business can run for 100 years. When a business is running for 100 years, now just imagine how much amount of data will get generated. Now all this data I'm pushing into my DBMS environment, then finally at the end of the day, what I should do, because I'll be having some thousands of hard disks getting filled up. Now, what I have to do with this data that is getting collected in my business? This question, when it is arising, the database management system environments, they start extending with a particular feature that is called as, you will try to query and analyze this business data that is stored and stocked within the DBMS environment. Means you are storing the data and you are stocking that particular data that is getting generated in the business for the sake of query and analyzation. Means I want to understand, every businessman will have a anxiety and enthusiasm to understand, today I did my business at this level, did I do it in a best way or a better way than yesterday? He wants to cross compare. If I don't keep my data that I generated yesterday in my business safely, there is no meaning I raise that question. I cannot get any technical answers for this. A businessman is doing his business since last 5 years, let us say. He wants to really ask a question. My business in these 5 years has been developing and it has been growing in which way? Only when I stock my previous year's data, then I can always make a cross comparison with my current year data that is existing. So we are always storing the data in the database management system environment for high level querying and analyzing that particular data in practical existence of itself. But here the question is, this particular query and analysis, when I do, what is the use of it? Why we should query or analyze the data? We are always querying and analyzing this particular data for the purpose of understanding, the system and the business in a more better way. Okay, the main intention is we want to understand the system and the business in a more better way than what it was previously. Once I fundamentally start understanding my system and my business to be in a more better way, what I should do, I'll put this into a cycle to develop a new system once again. I'll try to develop a new system with new features, with new facilities and new approaches and methodologies to make my objects and events interact in a more intelligent way. This is happening since centuries, man. This cycle is there for centuries in practicality. Now, I think our overall goal in sitting in these sessions and saying that you want to learn databases is very clear now. How seriously we will do it and how best we will present it, that is only the time that will answer us. But I think my agenda is very clearly focused. And your agenda in sitting these particular sessions and marking yourself seriously to the industry is clear or not, you think from your side. By the time I complete my particular course and I say, today your contract with me is completed, I'm only expecting you to give a great deal of confidence to your industry that you keep me in the project of database anywhere in this cycle you keep me, I can give you solutions and I can give you very practical approach of your expected demand of the problem to the solution as an approach. For all these things to happen, it cannot be anything around 1 or 2 days, man. Okay, because majority of the times I find students coming and telling me that, sir, I don't have too much of time in my life. With 10 days or 15 days, I want to do great wonders. In last 16 years, I think no wonder has happened in your life. So if anybody says in 15 days it can happen, listening is your problem. It's not my problem. Okay. So how serious you are with your career, how serious you are with your course to find a place in the software industry, to mark yourself as a software engineer and stay there with security and confidence for next 10 to 15 years, you decide. Because I'm going to drive you only to make yourself absolutely hit the industry, telling them that I am a database software professional who can only provide solutions to the problems that are explained in your systems. If you're having that particular clear, straightforward agenda, then I think we are on the same practical line on which we are going to travel. If anybody is looking shortcuts, so today I want to sleep and tomorrow I should become database developer. No, I don't know that particular formula, because being in the industry for last 25 years, I myself has never seen any shortcuts, man, to keep myself sustainable to the technology in implementation. So I cannot give you any wrong suggestion and wrong information now. If anywhere you feel that it can happen, now you can always think of making yourself participate in those environments. But from my side, it's an absolutely concentrative factor where our entire journey will be anything definitely 3.5 months to 4 months down the line to pick up the entire course. Anyhow, what is exactly my agenda and the way I'm going to work out, I'm very clear. And another point I want to tell you, 10 days we will always see that these sessions are fundamentally released for everybody in an open space, which generally people call as demo. But I don't think today we had any introduction of myself or yourself. We are directly into the subject, we are directly into the concept. This will be happening continuously, regularly. So tomorrow we will be discussing where we stopped today, not anything in repetition. Therefore, everybody who has been signing with us with your mail ID, please see that you're definitely providing your mail ID and your mobile number. Please don't keep it in the chat boxes. We have basically issued a mobile number. Please see that you're sending your mail ID, which is especially Gmail, and your mobile number to us, so that we can be in touch with you in sending these particular recorded videos and the material that is basically essential for you to practice. So how to install Oracle and all, you just leave everything technically, functionally onto my shoulder. And if I learn Oracle, sir, can I work with any other databases? If you are seriously putting your effort the way I am expecting your concentration, you are learning Oracle, but don't forget you're learning one of the world's best database management systems. So if you are putting yourself very effectively into my lectures, you can work with any database management system software in the world, any brand. So please see that you're absolutely WhatsApping your mail ID along with your mobile numbers absolutely on this. Okay. Please see that you're working on. Just a minute, I'll give you the actual mail ID through which you can contact us. Okay. So that you don't have any confusions. So you please see that you're WhatsApping with your name, email ID and phone number along with the batch name and batch timing, man. Please don't send live. Please send me the video. Which videos? From morning till evening, I'll be handling anything around 13 sessions of different technologies. So which technology session you're expecting from me? So please see that you're giving the batch name and the batch timing along with your working phone number. Don't give any phone number where we make a call to tell you there is a session and it says this phone number is not in use now. Okay, please don't do that. We cannot help you if you're not giving proper details. And any mail ID where you will look into that mail ID daily. Don't give such a kind of mail ID 10 years back you started and you never seen that till now. Please give a mail ID that is active. That is Gmail is always good such that we can share the recorded videos into your particular mailbox, which is basically kept in the Google Drive, and from there you can have it. Any session you're missing, those sessions you can find there. Anyhow, it's just a beginning. Now, I don't think we can do any great wonders immediately, but I think we are very clear in the flow and the process. With all this, let us see what is exactly waiting for us in next 24 hours to just extend ourselves from this particular place. Any other details like your syllabus, your financials, and everything, you can just WhatsApp and we'll be sending it to you on your mobile numbers. Okay. Thank you very much for sparing your time and keeping yourself patience with me for the last 1.5 hours. With you once again tomorrow in the evening, exactly at 7. I'm signing off from this side. Have a nice day. Have a great day and take care of yourself. Thank you very much.